The 6 Blind Men and the Elephant. 6 men lived in a small village in India. All 6 were blind, and none of them had ever encountered an elephant. They had heard people speak about elephants many times. Some said that elephants were enormous. Others described their strength, their long trunks, and their wide ears. But the 6 men wanted to discover the truth for themselves. One morning, they heard that an elephant had arrived in their village. "This is our opportunity," said the first man. "We may not be able to see the elephant, but we can examine it with our hands." The 6 men made their way through the village until they reached the animal. The elephant stood calmly as each man approached a different part of its body. The first man walked directly into the elephant's large, solid side. He stretched out both hands and felt its broad body. "Now I understand," he announced. "An elephant is like a great wall." The second man reached forward and touched one of the elephant's tusks. He ran his fingers along its smooth surface until he reached its sharp point. "You are completely mistaken," he replied. "An elephant is not like a wall. It is hard, smooth, and pointed. An elephant is like a spear." The third man took hold of the elephant's moving trunk. "You are both wrong," he said. "An elephant is long, flexible, and twists from side to side. An elephant is clearly like a large snake." The fourth man placed his arms around one of the elephant's legs. "How can you say that?" he asked. "An elephant is thick, strong, and stands upright. It is obviously like the trunk of a tree." The fifth man felt one of the elephant's enormous ears as it moved gently backwards and forwards. "None of you understands the elephant," he declared. "An elephant is broad, thin, and moves through the air. It is like a giant fan." Finally, the sixth man found the elephant's tail. He held it carefully and felt the tuft of hair at its end. "You are all talking nonsense," he said. "An elephant is nothing more than a rope." The 6 men began to argue. "It is a wall. No, it is a spear. It is a snake. It is a tree. It is a fan. It is a rope." Each man was certain that he alone understood the truth. Their voices grew louder, and they became increasingly angry with one another. A wise traveler who had been watching them finally stepped forward. "Each of you has described something real," she explained. "The elephant's side is like a wall. Its tusk is like a spear. Its trunk is like a snake. Its leg is like a tree. Its ear is like a fan, and its tail is like a rope. However, each of you has touched only one part of the animal. You are arguing because you have mistaken one part of the truth for the whole truth." The men became silent. They realized that none of them had been completely wrong. However, none of them had been completely right either. Only by bringing their different experiences together could they begin to understand the entire elephant. This simple story is now told around the world, but its origins stretch back more than 2,000 years. It developed in ancient India and appears in several Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu traditions. One of the earliest surviving written versions is found in an early Buddhist collection called the Udāna. In that version, a king orders several people who have been blind since birth to be brought together. Each person is shown a different part of an elephant and then asked to describe the animal. One touches the elephant's head and compares it to a pot. Another touches its ear and compares it to a basket. Others feel its tusk, trunk, body, leg, back, or tail. They then begin arguing and fighting because each believes that only their own description is correct. The Buddha uses the story to criticize religious teachers and philosophers who argue about reality while understanding only a small part of it. The problem is not simply that their knowledge is incomplete, it is that they do not recognize its limitations. The story also became closely associated with the Jain idea of anekāntavāda, often translated as many-sidedness or non-one-sidedness. Jain philosophers argued that reality is complex and contains many different aspects. A statement may express something true from one particular viewpoint without explaining the whole truth. The lesson is not that truth does not exist or that every opinion is equally correct. Instead, It is that people should be careful about turning a limited viewpoint into an absolute claim. A person may possess genuine knowledge while still having much more to learn. Centuries later, the Persian poet and Sufi teacher Jalal al-Din Rumi told a fascinating variation of the story. In Rumi's version, the people are not blind. Instead, an elephant is placed inside a completely dark room. Several people enter and try to understand the animal by touching it. As in the earlier story, the person touching the trunk describes one thing, while those touching the ear, leg, and back describe something entirely different. Rumi then introduces an important idea. Had there been a candle in the room, the disagreement might have disappeared. For Rumi, the darkness represents the limits of ordinary human perception. People may grasp fragments of reality through their senses, but they often lack the greater light needed to understand how those fragments fit together. His version has often been interpreted as a reflection on spiritual knowledge and disagreements about God, existence, and the nature of reality. The version most familiar to many English-speaking audiences was written by the 19th-century American poet John Godfrey Saxe. Saxe transformed the ancient Indian story into a humorous poem about 6 men. His comparisons, the wall, spear, snake, tree, fan, and rope, helped make this particular version famous in Europe and North America. The fable has since been used in religion, philosophy, education, science, business, and psychology. Researchers from different academic disciplines sometimes use it to illustrate how specialists can study the same problem but reach different conclusions. A psychologist might focus on human behavior. A sociologist might examine social structures. An economist might study money and resources. A historian might investigate how the problem developed over time. Each discipline may reveal something important, but a fuller explanation may require them to share their findings. The story can also help us understand everyday disagreements. 2 people may experience the same event differently because they were standing in different places, noticed different details, or were affected in different ways. Listening to another person does not always mean that we must agree with them. It means recognizing that our own experience may not contain every relevant fact. However, the story also comes with an important warning. It is sometimes summarized by saying, "Everyone has their own truth," but that is not quite what happens in the fable. The men do not invent completely unrelated ideas. Each of their claims is based on genuine contact with the elephant. Their mistake is not observation. Their mistake is overconfidence. The man holding the tail has evidence that the elephant has something resembling a rope. He does not have enough evidence to conclude that the entire elephant is a rope. The fable therefore teaches us to distinguish between a partial truth, a complete explanation, and an unsupported opinion. There is another interesting question hidden inside the story. Who is able to recognize that all 6 men are describing parts of the same elephant? The storyteller, and therefore the audience, can understand the complete picture because we are given information that the individual characters do not possess. This means the story is not only asking us to listen to different perspectives, it is also asking us to search for better evidence, broader understanding, and ways of connecting separate pieces of knowledge. The traditional use of blindness in the story should also be understood as an ancient literary device. The lesson concerns the limits of information and perspective. It should not be taken as suggesting that people with visual impairments are less intelligent or less capable of understanding the world. Ultimately, the 6 men could have continued arguing forever. Alternatively, they could have asked one another a simple question: "What did you discover?" Had they listened carefully and combined their experiences, they might have constructed a much more accurate picture of the elephant. That is why this ancient story remains so relevant. It reminds us that being partly correct does not make us completely correct. It teaches us that confidence is not the same as knowledge. It shows us that disagreements are sometimes caused not by dishonesty, but by people experiencing different parts of the same reality. Most importantly, it encourages intellectual humility, the willingness to say, "This is what I have discovered, but there may be more that I have not yet understood." The elephant was always greater than any one person's description, and perhaps the truth usually is too. Sources include Udāna 6.4 from the early Buddhist texts, scholarship on the Jain principle of anekāntavāda, Rumi's Masnavi, Book 3, and John Godfrey Saxe's 19th century poem, The Blind Men and the Elephant.